The mountains of Montana wake slowly in November. The fog clings to the pines like old breath, thick and cold, refusing to let go. The road that winds up to Silver Peak is more memory than pavement, now gravel and mud-cracked, asphalt swallowed by decades of rain and snow. No one comes up here anymore. No one has reason to, except Garrett Reed. His Chevy Silverado groans as it climbs the grade, the engine rattling like a man who's been coughing too long. The truck is older than most marriages. Red paint peeling to rust, dents in the hood from hail that fell 10 years back. The passenger side mirror hangs by a wire taped in place with duct tape that started to peel. But it runs. That's all that matters. In the back seat behind a steel mesh divider sits Maverick, 7 years old, Shepherd Malinois mix, sable coat streaked with black ears sharp as blades. A scar runs down his right shoulder, thick and white, where shrapnel tore through muscle in Kandahar back in 2019. Garrett's last deployment before he came home for good. The dog's left front leg doesn't bend quite right anymore. There's a hitch in his gait when he runs. But his eyes, dark amber unblinking, miss nothing. Garrett glances in the rearview mirror. Maverick is staring out the window, head tilted slightly, nose twitching at the scent of pine and snowmelt. The dog doesn't wag his tail, doesn't pant, just watches, always watching. Almost there, Mav, Garrett says. The dog's ear flicks. Acknowledgement, not excitement. Maverick doesn't do excitement. He does his job. Garrett turns his eyes back to the road. His hands grip the wheel, knuckles pale against the scarred skin. The scars on his fingers catch the weak morning light. One pinky sits crooked, broken twice in hand-to-hand combat, never set right. A burn mark runs along the outside of his left thumb from a hot shell casing that landed wrong during a firefight in Helmand Province. He's 53 years old. Hair buzzed short in the same high and tight he's worn since boot camp, more gray than brown now. A beard that's gone silver at the edges, kept trimmed close to his jaw. The kind of face that's seen too much sun, too much sand, too much of everything that doesn't wash off. Deep lines bracket his mouth. Crow's feet spread from the corners of his eyes. Not from smiling, from squinting into desert sun and mountain snow and the bright flash of IEDs. Around his neck, beneath a faded flannel shirt, the color of old denim, hang 2 dog tags. Stamped steel. The letters worn smooth but still legible if you know where to look. Reed Garrett JUSMC, OPOS, no pref. He hasn't taken them off since 2019. They clink softly against each other. When he moves a sound so familiar, he doesn't hear it anymore. The radio crackles. Static, then the faint twang of Creedence Clearwater Revival. Fortunate Son. The opening guitar riff cuts through the cab like a knife, familiar and unwelcome. His mother used to play this song, back when she was alive, back before the cancer took her in 2012. Garrett reaches over and turns it off. Silence rushes in to fill the space. The hum of the engine. The crunch of gravel under tires. The slow, steady breathing of the dog behind him. The tick of the turn signal he forgot to switch off 3 miles back. He doesn't need music right now. He needs to think. 3 days ago, a letter arrived at his trailer. A thick envelope, the kind lawyers use. Heavy cream-colored paper. Embossed logo in the corner, Harrison and Lee Attorneys at Law. Established 1952. He almost threw it away. Men like Garrett don't get letters from lawyers unless someone's suing them or someone's dead. Turned out it was the second one. The letter was short, professional, cold in the way legal language always is stripped of anything human. Dear Mr. Reed, we regret to inform you of the passing of Dorothy Thorne on November 5th, 1999. As per the terms of her last will and testament filed with this office in 1998, you have been named sole beneficiary of her estate, including the property located at Silver Peak, Montana. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to finalize the transfer of ownership. Sincerely, Harrison and Lee Attorneys at Law, Dorothy Thorne, his grandmother. Garrett hadn't seen her since he was 26 years old, early November 1999, 27 years ago. She lived up here alone in a cabin she'd bought with cash sometime in the late 60s. No phone, no neighbors for 5 miles in any direction. Just her and the mountain and whatever ghost she'd brought with her. His mother used to say Dorothy had gone strange after the war. Not the kind of strange that gets you locked up. The quiet kind. The kind that makes you disappear from family gatherings, from Christmas cards, from the world. The kind where people stop asking questions because they're afraid of the answers. Garrett only met her 3 times in his whole life. Once when he was 5, brought up by his mother for a weekend visit he barely remembers. Once when he was 18, right before he enlisted, when he drove up alone to tell her he was joining the Marines. And once more in '99, just weeks before she died, though he didn't know it would be the last time. Each time she looked at him like she was trying to memorize his face, like she was cataloging the shape of his nose, the color of his eyes, the way he held his shoulders. Like she knew she wouldn't see him again and wanted to carry the memory with her. She was right. Inside the envelope was a key, heavy, iron, the kind they don't make anymore, hand-forged, with a bit and bow that showed the marks of a file, and a hand-drawn map, edges yellowed with age, showing the route from Cedar Ridge up to the cabin. Someone had drawn it in pencil, careful and slow, with landmarks noted in the margins. Big pine with lightning scar, creek crossing used stones, gate lock broken. At the top, in slanted handwriting that leaned left instead of right, were the words, "Garrett, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Be careful." And on the back of the map, smudged and faint, like it had been written in a hurry with a hand that shook, "Kane knows everything." Garrett didn't know who Kane was, didn't recognize the name. He turned it over in his mind for 3 days, searching his memory for any mention, any connection. Nothing. But the handwriting was unmistakable. It was hers, Dorothy's, the same careful script from the birthday cards she'd sent when he was young before she stopped sending them. And beneath the words, barely visible, unless you held the paper to the light, was a stain. Dark brown, rust-colored, blood. He should have called the lawyers, should have asked questions, should have let someone else handle this. But Garrett Reed was never good at asking for help. He was good at following through, good at fixing things that were broken, good at showing up when no one else would. It was what the Marines had trained him to do, complete the mission, no matter what. So he packed a bag, threw it in the truck bed along with a toolbox, a sleeping bag, rated to 20 below, and a 5-gallon jerry can of gas in case he got stranded. Loaded Maverick into the back seat, locked up the trailer, not that there was anything worth stealing, inside, and drove. Now, as the Silverado crests the final ridge, the cabin comes into view. It sits in a clearing, surrounded by Douglas firs that tower like cathedral walls, their branches heavy with old-growth needles. The structure is small, maybe 800 square feet, built from logs that have gone gray with age, the chinking between them dark and crumbling. The roof is corrugated tin streaked with rust that bleeds down the sides in long orange tears. The windows are shuttered with plywood. The porch sags on one side, the wood soft from decades of rot and freeze-thaw cycles. Behind the cabin, the mountain rises like a wall, granite and scree and stubborn pine clinging to cracks in the rock. To the west, the valley drops away, green and dark, with forest stretching for miles until it meets the next ridge. It's the kind of place you come to when you don't want to be found. Garrett kills the engine. The silence is immediate, total. The kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums until they ache, that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, the rush of blood through your veins. He steps out. Boots hit gravel. The sound is sharp in the stillness. Maverick hops down from the back, landing lightly despite the bad leg. The dog circles once, nose to the ground, processing 1,000 scents Garrett can't detect. Then stops. His ears go flat against his skull. A low rumble starts in his chest. Garrett freezes. "What is it, boy?" Maverick's gaze is locked on the cabin, not the door, the ground, near the porch steps. Garrett follows the dog's stare. Tire tracks. Fresh. Deep grooves in the mud, still wet at the edges, water pooling in the low spots. The tread pattern is clear. All-terrain tires, big vehicle. The tracks lead from the road to a spot 10 feet from the porch, then circle back out. Someone's been here. Recently. Within the last few hours. His hand moves instinctively to his hip, reaching for the Glock that isn't there. He left it back in the trailer, locked in a drawer with his discharge papers and the medal they gave him for Kandahar. Old habits die hard, but carrying a weapon without cause feels like inviting the kind of trouble he came up here to avoid. Still, he whistles low 2 sharp notes. Maverick trots to his side, pressed close against his leg, body tense and ready. Together they approach the cabin. The front door is locked. Garrett pulls the iron key from his pocket and slides it into the deadbolt. It turns with a heavy click that echoes across the clearing. The door swings inward, hinges groaning like something waking from a long sleep. Inside, the air is thick. Dust and mildew and the faint smell of wood smoke, old and cold, embedded in the walls and floor. Furniture sits draped in white sheets, ghostly shapes in the dim light, filtering through cracks in the shutters. A Franklin stove squats in the corner, its iron belly caked in ash that might be decades old. Shelves line the walls, sagging under the weight of books, with cracked spines and faded covers. Field guides to Montana flora. Old Reader's Digest condensed novels, a King James Bible with gilt edges gone dull. On the mantel above the stove, there's a photograph in a tarnished silver frame, black and white, a woman in her 40s standing in front of a government building with columns and steps. She's wearing a vest and a white blouse, her hair pinned back in the style of the 60s victory rolls that speak of a different era. Her expression is serious, composed, but her eyes, there's something in them. Defiance, maybe, or fear, or both. Beneath the photo, a small brass plate reads, Dorothy Thorne Army Finance Division, 1968. Garrett stares at the picture for a long moment, trying to reconcile this woman with the one he remembers. The Dorothy he knew was old, bent. Her hands always shaking slightly, like she was cold even in summer. But this woman, she looked strong, unbreakable. He barely remembers her face, but he remembers her voice. Quiet, steady, the kind of voice that didn't waste words, that made you listen carefully because she wouldn't repeat herself. She told him once during that last visit in '99 that some truths are too dangerous to speak aloud. That silence can be a kind of protection. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep your mouth shut and wait. He didn't understand then. He's starting to now. Maverick moves past him, nose working the floor. The dog sniffs along the baseboards, the corners, the rug in front of the stove. A woven thing, colors faded to browns and grays. Then he stops. Dead stop. His ears shoot forward. His tail goes rigid, parallel to the ground. And then he does something Garrett hasn't seen him do in years, not since their last patrol in Kandahar. He barks. Not a warning bark. Not the deep, guttural sound he makes when there's danger. This is sharper. Higher. 3 short bursts in rapid succession. An alert. Trained behavior. Maverick is telling him he's found something. Garrett's pulse kicks up. He crosses the room in 2 strides and kneels beside the dog, joints protesting. Show me. Maverick scratches at the floor. Once. Twice. His claws dig into the wood, pulling at the edge of a plank near the base of the stove. Garrett leans closer. The plank is loose, deliberately loose. He can see the gap where it doesn't sit flush with the others, where the nails have been pulled and reset probably dozens of times over the years. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a crowbar. Stanley Fatmax, 18 inches of forged steel, red handle, worn smooth from years of use. He carries it everywhere along with a Leatherman multi-tool and a mini maglite. Old Marine habit. You never know when you'll need to pry something open or cut something loose or find your way in the dark. He wedges the flat end under the plank and pulls. The wood groans, nails screech in protest. And then the plank comes free with a crack that makes Maverick flinch, revealing a shallow hollow beneath. Inside is a metal box. It's small, maybe 12 inches by 4 inches deep. Military issue by the look of it, the kind used to store sensitive documents or equipment in the field. Olive drab paint chipped and faded to show rust underneath. On the lid, stamped in black stencil that's partially worn away, are the words, D. Thorne. And beneath that smaller, almost unreadable, if found call, be Garrett's breath catches in his throat. He lifts the box out carefully like it might explode if handled wrong. It's heavier than it looks. He sets it on the floor beside the stove and stares at it, hands hovering over the latch but not opening it yet. Maverick sits beside him, perfectly still, eyes locked on the box. The dog knows this is important. He can sense it in the way Garrett's breathing. It has changed, shallow and fast. Garrett's fingers tremble as he pries open the latch. The metal is cold against his skin. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth that crackles when he touches it, are 4 items. The first is a journal, leather-bound, dark brown, almost black, the color of old blood. The cover is soft with age, the edges frayed where fingers have gripped it over and over. On the first page, in careful cursive, written with a fountain pen, is Dorothy Thorne, 1968 to 1999. 31 years of her life distilled into one book. The second item is a medal, bronze. A star with 5 points suspended from a faded ribbon that might have been red and white once, but has faded to pink and cream. Garrett recognizes it, a bronze star awarded for heroic or meritorious achievement in a combat zone. But this one wasn't awarded to Dorothy. Engraved on the back is a name, Theodore Kane. The third is a cassette tape, Max LUD, XL2, the kind you don't see anymore, the kind that required a tape deck and patience. A white label is stuck to the front, the handwriting in blue ink that's faded but still legible. Proof. October 14th, 1968. And the fourth is a photograph. It shows a little boy. Maybe 5 years old? Blonde hair cut short, cowlick sticking up and back. Big eyes, gray-blue like storm clouds. He's wearing overalls and a striped shirt. Standing in front of this cabin, he recognizes the porch, the same sagging boards holding the hand of a woman in a long coat. The woman is Dorothy, younger than in the photo on the mantel, but unmistakably her. Garrett recognizes the boy. It's him. He turns the photo over with hands that won't stay steady. On the back, in the same handwriting as the map, it says Garrett, age 5. Last visit, 1978. But he'd been here 3 times. Not once. His throat tightens. Memory's a funny thing. Unreliable. He was so young. Maybe his mother had brought him more than once and he'd forgotten. Or maybe Dorothy had written the wrong date. Or maybe he sets the photo down before he can spiral further and picks up the journal. The leather is cool against his palms, smooth in some places, rough in others, where water or tears have stained it. He opens it to the first page and reads, December 10th, 1968. They will call me a thief, but I am not. I move the money back where it belongs. General Kane took $47 million meant for men who gave everything for this country. Men who came home broken and were promised help that never came. I have proof, I have witnesses, but no one will listen. They've already decided I'm guilty. A woman? A civilian accountant? Who am I to accuse a decorated general? If I die before this is found, let my grandson know I did not steal. General Kane did. Garrett's hands go still. He reads the entry again, slower this time, processing each word. $47 million, General Kane. Theft. He flips through the journal pages, crackling under his fingers. Page after page of entries. Dates, names he doesn't recognize. Numbers. Bank transfers. Accounts traced through shell companies. All in Dorothy's neat, precise handwriting, the kind they taught in secretarial schools. Back then, every letter formed with care. And then near the end, an entry dated November 3rd, 1999, 2 days before she died. Garrett, if you are reading this, I am gone. I have lived 27 years in hiding, waiting for the right time to speak. But the right time never came. Kane is too powerful, too protected. The men who could have helped me are dead or too afraid to act. Do not trust the police. Do not trust the government. They protected Kane then. They will protect his son now. Bring this into the light. Make it public. Let the world see what they did to me, what they did to thousands of veterans who deserve better. I am sorry I could not be the grandmother you deserved, but I hope you understand why. I love you. Grandma Dorothy. Garrett closes the journal. His chest feels tight, like someone's sitting on it. His vision blurs at the edges. He blinks hard, forces air into his lungs. She didn't abandon the family because she was crazy. She was hiding, running, protecting herself and him from something bigger than he can comprehend yet. Maverick whines softly, a sound he rarely makes. The dog nudges his arm with his nose, pressing close the way he does when Garrett's heart rate spikes too high, when the panic starts to creep in. Garrett exhales slowly, counting to 4 holds for 7 releases for 8. The breathing technique Dr. Chen taught him at the VA, it helps. A little. He reaches out and rests a hand on Maverick's head, fingers sinking into the thick fur behind his ears. She wasn't crazy, he murmurs to the dog, to himself, to the empty cabin. She was hiding. A sound cuts through the silence. Footsteps. On the porch. Heavy. Deliberate. The creak of old wood under weight. Maverick's head snaps toward the door. His lips pull back, teeth bared. A low growl rolls out of his chest, deep and rumbling, a sound that means threat. Garrett's heart slams against his ribs. He grabs the crowbar and rises slowly to his feet, knees protesting. The metal feels solid in his grip. Familiar. He's cracked skulls with less. The footsteps stop. Silence. Then 3 sharp knocks. Confident. Unhurried. Mr. Reed, a voice calls from outside, male, calm, educated. The kind of voice that's used to being obeyed. Are you in there? Garrett doesn't answer. He moves to the window, peering through a crack in the shutters. A man stands on the porch. Late 60s, maybe 70. Tall, 6'2" or 6'3". Silver hair combed back from a high forehead. Navy suit that probably cost more than Garrett's truck, tailored to fit perfectly across broad shoulders that haven't gone soft with age. Dark sunglasses even though the sun isn't out. Ray-Bans expensive. Behind him, parked in the clearing next to Garrett's Silverado, is a black Cadillac Escalade. Spotless. Gleaming. The kind of vehicle that costs $80,000 and gets 12 miles to the gallon. The man smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. I know you're in there, Mr. Reed. I can see your truck. Garrett sets the crowbar down, out of sight but within reach, and opens the door halfway. Maverick stays at his side, growling, low hackles raised. The man's smile widens, showing teeth that are too white, too perfect. Veneers, probably. Garrett Reed, he says, like they're old friends meeting after years apart. My name is Victor Kane. The name lands like a fist to the solar plexus. Garrett's jaw tightens. He doesn't speak, doesn't move, just stares. Kane extends a hand. Manicured nails. Gold watch on his wrist. Rolex if Garrett had to guess. Pleasure to meet you. Garrett doesn't take the hand. Kane lowers it slowly, unbothered. His smile doesn't falter. He glances at Maverick, then back at Garrett. Military working dog, I see. Shepherd Malinois. Beautiful animal. Explosive detection, if I had to guess. You served together. Garrett says nothing. Kane's smile fades just slightly, like a cloud passing over the sun. Strong, silent type. I respect that. My father was the same way. He reaches into his jacket, slowly telegraphing the movement, and pulls out a business card. Embossed lettering, gold trim. Victor Kane Kane and Associates. Government Consulting, Washington, D.C. Helena, Montana. He holds it out. Garrett doesn't move. Kane sets the card on the porch railing, where it immediately begins to curl in the damp air. I'll get to the point, Mr. Reed. Time is money, as they say. This property sits on land that's part of a development project my company is overseeing. We're building a resort, high-end, eco-friendly, bringing jobs and tourism to Cedar Ridge. This cabin, he gestures dismissively, is right in the middle of our planned access road. Not for sale, Garrett says. His voice is flat, final. Kane tilts his head, studying him like an entomologist examining a beetle. I understand sentiment. Truly I do. But sentiment doesn't pay bills. I'd like to purchase it from you. $250,000. Cash. No questions asked. You could buy a real house. Not that trailer you're living in. Garrett's blood goes cold. Kane knows where he lives, where he works, how much he's worth. I said no. Kane's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. Something cold and reptilian. Are you certain living alone out here? It's not safe. These mountains are dangerous. Accidents happen. Fires, falling trees, wild animals. His gaze drops to Maverick. Dogs go missing all the time in these mountains. Coyotes, bears, poison bait left out by careless hunters. Maverick's growl deepens. His muscles coil, ready to launch. Garrett steps forward, putting himself between Kane and the dog. His voice drops to a whisper, the kind of quiet that carries more threat than shouting ever could. Touch my dog and you'll find out what a Marine does when he's got nothing left to lose. For a long moment, neither man moves. The air between them crackles with violence held in check. Then Kane steps back. His smile returns smooth and practiced, like a mask sliding back into place. Of course, he says softly, I meant no offense. Just concerned for your safety. These mountains can be unforgiving. He turns and walks back to the Escalade, movements unhurried. The engine purrs to life, German engineering probably. But before he drives away, he leans out the window. Think about my offer, Mr. Reed. You have 24 hours. After that, he shrugs. Well, I can't guarantee your safety or your dog's. The Cadillac rolls down the dirt road and disappears into the trees, leaving a wake of dust that hangs in the still air. Garrett stands on the porch, heart pounding, fists clenched so tight his nails dig into his palms. Adrenaline floods his system, the same chemical cocktail that kept him alive in Kandahar, that sharpened his senses and slowed time. Maverick sits beside him, ears forward, eyes locked on the road where Kane disappeared. And then Garrett sees it. On the porch railing beside the business card is a white envelope. He picks it up, opens it with fingers that want to shake but don't. Inside is a photograph. It shows Garrett, yesterday, at the scrapyard in Cedar Ridge where he works part-time. Morrison's Salvage and Recycling. He's wearing his welding jacket, the leather one with burn marks on the sleeves. Miller Bobcat, 250 welder in front of him, sparks flying as he cuts through a sheet of steel. The angle suggests the photo was taken from across the yard, maybe from a car on the road. Someone was watching him. Someone has been watching him for days, maybe weeks. On the back of the photo in neat handwriting, not Kane's too neat, probably a secretary, are 3 words. We know everything. Garrett's fingers won't stay still. He crumples the photo and shoves it into his pocket, then immediately regrets it. Evidence. He should have kept it pristine. He looks down at Maverick. The dog is watching him, waiting for orders. We're not leaving, Garrett says quietly. Maverick shifts closer. Solid, present. Garrett steps back inside the cabin and closes the door. Locks it, bolts it, and then he picks up the journal again. Whatever his grandmother buried up here, it's worth killing for. and Victor Kane just proved it. The cabin smells like old coffee and diesel fuel and the ghosts of 70 years. Garrett sits at the kitchen table, scarred pine built to last the kind of furniture they don't make anymore. The cassette tape between his hands. The plastic case is cracked at the corners, yellowed with age like old teeth. The label is still legible, though the ink has faded to a pale blue that's almost gray. Proof. October 14th, 1968. He found the tape player in a closet upstairs wrapped in a trash bag to keep the dust out. A Sony TCM 200DV, boxy, gray plastic. The kind that ran on 4 batteries. Miraculously, it still works. Barely. The play button sticks and the speaker crackles with static like Rice Krispies in milk. But it works. Maverick lies at his feet, chin resting on his paws, eyes half closed but alert. The dog hasn't moved in 20 minutes. His eyes track every motion Garrett makes, every shift in posture, every breath. Garrett presses play. Static hisses through the speaker, loud in the quiet cabin. Then a voice. Female. Steady. Professional. The voice of someone who knows she's being recorded and has chosen her words carefully. Dorothy. October 14th, 1968. Meeting with General Theodore Kane and Senator Malcolm Willis regarding Project Hope Relief Fund. Present are myself, Dorothy Thorne, Civilian Accountant, Army Finance Division, and Lieutenant Colonel James Garrett, Army Finance Division. There's a pause. The sound of papers rustling. A cough, hastily muffled. Then a man's voice, deep, authoritative. The kind of voice used to being obeyed without question, the kind of voice that's given orders that sent men to their deaths. Ms. Thorne, the disbursements you're questioning were approved at the highest levels. $47 million have been transferred according to protocol. I don't understand your concern. Dorothy's voice cuts and calm but firm, a school teacher correcting a student's error. Protocol General, I've reviewed the transfer records. 23 shell companies received payments. Acme Holdings, Pinnacle Development, Sentinel Industries. I checked with the Secretary of State's office in Helena. No registration, no addresses, no tax filings. These companies don't exist. A long silence. Garrett can hear someone breathing heavy and deliberate. Then the man's voice again, colder now, ice instead of steel. You're overstepping your authority, Ms. Thorne. I'm doing my job, General Kane. Another pause. The sound of a chair scraping across the floor, wood on wood, harsh and final. Let me be clear, Kane says, his tone dropping to a whisper that the microphone barely picks up. You're accusing the United States Army of theft. That's a serious allegation. One that could ruin your career, your life, your family. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand perfectly, General. I'm not accusing the Army. I'm accusing you. The sound that follows is sharp. A crack like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. Like a hand slamming against the desk. Or a face. Dorothy gasps. A wet, choked sound. General, that's enough, another voice. Male. Younger. Horrified. Sir, you can't. More sounds. Scuffling, a chair falling over with a crash, papers scattering, and then Dorothy's voice shaking now but still defiant. You can't bury this. I have copies. I have proof. I've already sent it to Wow. To who? Kane's voice is ice. Pure ice. The newspapers, the FBI. No one will believe a word you say. You're just a secretary, a woman. You think anyone cares what you have to say? I'm an accountant, and people will care when they see. The tape cuts to static with the click. Garrett sits frozen, staring at the machine. His fingers dig into the edge of the table until the wood bites into his palms, until he can feel splinters working their way under his skin. Maverick lifts his head. A low whine escapes his throat, the sound he makes when he senses Garrett's distress, when the PTSD starts to curl its fingers around his chest. Garrett reaches down and rests a hand on the dog's neck. The fur is warm, solid, real, an anchor to the present. She tried, he whispers to the empty cabin, to the ghosts that live here. She tried to stop him. He rewinds the tape and listens again and again, memorizing every word, every pause, every breath. The way Kane's voice goes from smooth to cold to threatening in the space of seconds. The way Dorothy's voice shakes but doesn't break. By the time the sun starts to set, painting the clearing in shades of orange and red, he's listened to it 11 times. He knows what he has to do. He needs to find Walter Pruitt. According to Dorothy's journal, he's been reading it all afternoon, cover to cover, every entry. Walt was a sergeant in the Army Supply Division in 1968. He was there the day Kane hit Dorothy. He saw everything, heard everything. But he never came forward, never testified. The journal says he was threatened, his pension, his family, his life. 3 kids at home, and a wife who didn't know how they'd survive if he lost everything. Dorothy wrote that Walt carried the guilt for 30 years, that he wanted to make it right but didn't know how, that by the time he found his courage, Kane was untouchable, a decorated general, a hero of 2 wars, a man with friends in Congress and the Pentagon. The journal lists an address for Walt, Silver Pines Veterans Home, Cedar Ridge. Garrett grabs his jacket, the field jacket he bought at an Army surplus store, olive drab warm, and heads for the door. Maverick is already there waiting like he always is. The drive down the mountain takes 40 minutes. The sun is gone by the time they reach the valley. The road into Cedar Ridge is narrow-lined with streetlights that flicker and hum with bad transformers. The town is small, population 3,000 according to the sign. Most of the storefronts are dark by 6 p.m. A diner with a neon sign that says "Eat," a hardware store with a faded awning, a post office with a flag hanging limp in the cold air. Silver Pines sits on the east edge of town right before the road turns to gravel again and heads into the national forest. A single-story building, pale yellow siding, gone dingy, a wheelchair ramp leading to the front door. The parking lot is nearly empty, a few cars clustered near the entrance, a white van with Silver Pines Veterans Home stenciled on the side. Garrett parks and cuts the engine. Maverick hops down and stays close as they walk inside the dog's limp, barely noticeable now that he's warmed up. The lobby smells like disinfectant and boiled vegetables and old people. Not a bad smell exactly. Just the smell of a place where time moves slowly and most of the residents are counting down instead of up. A woman at the front desk looks up. Mid-50s, tired eyes behind reading glasses on a chain, a name tag that reads Linda pinned to her cardigan. "Can I help you?" she asks. Her voice is kind but wary. They get strange visitors sometimes. "I'm looking for Walter Pruitt." Linda's expression softens immediately. "Walt, sure, honey. Room 12. Down the hall, third door on the left. He doesn't get many visitors. He'll be glad to see you." Garrett nods. "Thanks." She glances at Maverick, taking in the scars the professional bearing the service dog vest Garrett keeps in the truck for occasions like this. "Is he a service dog?" "Yes, ma'am." "All right, just keep him quiet. Some of the residents don't do well with loud noises. The war, you know." "I know. He won't make a sound." Garrett walks down the hall, boots silent on the linoleum. The walls are pale green institutional. Framed photos hang at intervals, black and white mostly. Old men in uniform, young men with rifles. Faded smiles from a time before they knew what war really meant. Room 12's door is half open. Inside, a man sits in a wheelchair by the window looking out at a view of the parking lot. He's small, thin, his shoulders hunched forward like he's trying to disappear into himself. His hair is white and wispy, a few strands combed carefully over a spotted scalp. His hands rest in his lap, trembling slightly from Parkinson's or age or both. Garrett knocks softly on the doorframe, 3 gentle taps. The man turns. His eyes are pale blue, rheumy with age and cataracts that haven't been bad enough to operate on yet. He squints, trying to bring Garrett into focus. "Who's there, Mr. Pruitt?" "My name is Garrett Reed. I'm Dorothy Thorne's grandson." The man's face goes slack. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. His hands start to shake harder, a tremor that runs up his arms to his shoulders. Garrett steps inside slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. Maverick follows, moving with the careful quietness he learned in Kandahar when silence meant survival. "I don't want to upset you," Garrett says gently. "I just need to ask you some questions. About my grandmother, about what happened in '68. Walt stares at him for a long moment. His eyes fill with tears that spill over and run down his cheeks, tracing the deep lines there, like water in a canyon. "Dorothy," he whispers. His voice cracks on the name. "God, Dorothy." Garrett pulls up a chair and sits across from him, close enough to speak quietly, far enough not to crowd. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out the photograph he found in the box. The one of Dorothy with the swollen face, the split lip, the bruise spreading across her cheek like spilled ink. He holds it out. Walt takes it with trembling fingers that can barely grip. He stares at it, his lips pressed together, a thin line that quivers. More tears come. "I was there," Walt says, his voice breaking into pieces. "I was right outside the door. I heard her scream. I heard him hit her. I heard her fall." He looks up at Garrett, and in his eyes is 58 years of guilt, of shame, of nights spent wishing he'd been braver. "And I did nothing." Garrett's chest tightens. He keeps his voice calm, steady, the voice he used with young Marines who were falling apart after their first firefight. "Tell me what happened." Walt wipes his eyes with the back of his hand, a gesture so simple and human it makes Garrett's throat ache. He takes a shaky breath. October 68. We were processing relief funds for Korean War veterans, men who came home in the 50s with nothing. No gifts, no help. The government finally allocated $47 million. Housing, medical care, job training, vocational programs. It was supposed to change lives. His hands clench in his lap. But Kane diverted it, moved it through fake companies he'd set up. Shell corporations with names that sounded real but weren't. Pocketed most of it, used it to buy land, start businesses, make himself rich while veterans lived in their cars. And Dorothy found out. Walt nods the motion jerky. She was the only one who checked the records. Everyone else just signed off. It was the Army. You didn't question the Army. But Dorothy, she wouldn't let it go. She confronted Kane in his office, October 14th. I was in the hallway filing reports. I heard shouting. He closes his eyes and Garrett can see him going back there to that hallway, to that moment that defined the rest of his life. Then I heard her scream. Not a word, just a sound. Pure pain. I opened the door. Just a crack. Just enough to see. His voice drops to a whisper. Kane had her by the arm. Her face was bleeding, blood running from her nose, from her mouth. He was telling her if she said one word to anyone, he'd destroy her. Make sure she never worked again. Make sure no one believed her. Make sure she went to prison for fraud. Walt's eyes opened red and wet. He saw me standing there, pointed at me, told me if I testified, if I said one word about what I'd seen, he'd court-martial me. Strip my pension. My wife had just had our third kid. Billy, 3 months old. I couldn't risk it. Garrett doesn't say anything, doesn't judge. He's been in impossible positions too. He knows what it's like to choose between what's right and what's survivable. Walt reaches under his pillow with a shaking hand and pulls out a small notebook. Brown leather. Worn at the edges, the corners rounded from years of being held. I kept records, he says. Every meeting, every transfer, every lie I heard, every signature I forged because Kane told me to. I thought maybe one day I'd have the courage to come forward, but Kane kept getting promoted. General, Medal of Honor. Advisor to 3 presidents, and I kept getting older, and the courage never came. He hands the notebook to Garrett with both hands like he's passing something sacred. Dorothy told me back in '72, last time I saw her before she disappeared, she told me if she died to give this to her grandson. Said you'd know what to do with it. Said you'd be brave enough. Garrett takes the notebook, opens it. Page after page of handwritten notes in cramped script, the writing of someone who doesn't want to be caught. Dates, account numbers, names, bank transfers traced through 3, 4, 5 levels of shell companies. And at the top of every page, the same name written in capital letters and underlined twice. Theodore Kane, Siddiq. Garrett looks up. Kane's dead, isn't he? Walt nods. 2015, heart attack, 78 years old, died in his sleep, never faced justice, never even questioned. But his son, Victor. Walt spits the name. Victor Kane. He's been cleaning up his father's mess for years. Buying land where the bodies are buried, not literal bodies, but close. Paying off witnesses. Making sure no one digs too deep. He's worse than his father in some ways. Smarter, more careful. He knows how to use lawyers instead of fists. Walt leans forward, his voice urgent, desperate. Dorothy didn't steal that money, son. She moved it, hid it. Kept it out of Kane's hands because she couldn't return it without proof, and by the time she had proof, they'd already branded her a thief. They issued a warrant. Federal charges. She had to run. Garrett's jaw tightens. Every muscle in his body is tense. Where's the money now? Walt's eyes flick to the window, then back to Garrett. His voice drops even lower. I don't know exactly, but Dorothy said the last time I saw her, he swallows hard. She said if anything happened to her, check the chimney. That's all she'd tell me. Check the chimney. Said you'd understand when the time came. Garrett stands. The chimney. Walt grabs his wrist. His grip is weak, the bones of his fingers fragile as bird bones, but desperate. Be careful. Victor Kane is worse than his father ever was. Theodore would hit you. Victor will destroy you, legally, financially. He's got lawyers that cost $1,000 an hour. Connections that go all the way to Washington. He'll bury you in paperwork and lawsuits and make you wish you'd never been born. Garrett nods. I'll be careful. He turns to leave, but Walt calls after him, voice breaking. Garrett. He stops. Make it right, Walt says, tears streaming down his face again. For Dorothy, for all of us who were too scared. Please make it right. Garrett looks back at the old man, at the tears in his eyes, at the weight of 58 years of guilt pressing down on his shoulders like a stone. I will. The drive back to the cabin is silent. Maverick sits in the back, ears forward, watching the road. Garrett's mind is racing, pieces falling into place. The chimney. Dorothy said to check the chimney. The Franklin stove in the cabin has a chimney pipe. Old cast iron. Rusted at the seams. If you wanted to hide something for decades somewhere, it would survive fire and weather and time. You'd hide it in a place no one would think to look. He pulls into the clearing just after 9 p.m. The cabin is dark, a black shape against the darker woods. He grabs a flashlight from the glove box, streamlight the good kind that doesn't die when you need it, and heads inside. Maverick goes straight to the stove, sniffing at the base, then looking up at the pipe. Garrett kneels and shines a light up into the chimney. It's clogged with soot and debris and bird nests from decades of disuse. He reaches up, feeling around his arm, scraping against rust and old creosote. His fingers brush against something solid. Not brick, not metal, wrapped in plastic. He pulls it down carefully. A bundle. Heavy. Sealed tight with duct tape that's gone gray and brittle with age. He sets it on the floor and cuts the tape with his pocket knife, the one with the Marine Corps emblem on the handle that he's carried since boot camp. Inside is a metal tin. Military issue. Olive drab. The same kind as the box under the floor, but larger. He pries it open with hands that want to shake, but don't. And freezes. Inside are checks. Dozens of them. Each one made out for $1 million. Each one signed in neat, careful handwriting. Theodore Kane. Each one dated October 1968. He counts them twice. 47 checks. $47 million. None of them cashed. Beneath the checks is another photograph. Dorothy, younger than in the photo on the mantle, maybe 40, standing outside a government building, the same one from the other photo. Her face is bruised, swollen, her lips split and bleeding. One eye swollen, nearly shut. But her eyes, despite everything, her eyes are fierce, unbroken. And beneath the photograph is a letter, handwritten on army letterhead that's yellowed with age, dated November 3rd, 1999, 2 days before she died. Garrett unfolds it with fingers that won't stay still. Garrett, if you are reading this, I am gone. I have lived in this cabin for 30 years waiting for the moment when it would be safe to speak. But that moment never came. Kane died in his sleep unpunished. His son has taken his place. The cycle continues. I hid the money because it was stolen. I could not let Kane keep it. But I could not return it without proof, and by the time I had proof, I was already a fugitive. They would not have believed me. A woman? A thief in their eyes. I tried to do the right thing, and it cost me everything. My career, my family, my life. Do not trust the police. Do not trust the government. They protected Kane then. They will protect his son now. The system is built to protect men like him. But you can do what I could not. Bring this into the light. Make it public. Let the world see what they did to me. What they did to thousands of veterans who deserved better. I am sorry I could not be the grandmother you deserved. But I hope you understand why I had to disappear. I hope you can forgive me. I love you more than you will ever know. Grandma P.S. The dog tags in the box belong to your grandfather. He died in Korea before I knew I was pregnant with your mother. His name was James Garrett. He was a good man. I named you after him. Garrett's fingers won't stay still as he folds the letter. His throat is tight. His eyes burn. He looks down at Maverick. The dog is staring at the door. His ears are flat, his lips pulled back. A growl rumbles in his chest, low and continuous. Garrett grabs the flashlight and moves to the window. Outside, the clearing is black. No headlights, no engine sounds, but something's wrong. He can feel it in the way Maverick's body has gone rigid, in the way the hair along his spine is standing up. Garrett steps onto the porch. The beam cuts through the darkness. And there, 20 feet away, standing at the edge of the tree line, is a figure. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. The figure doesn't move, doesn't speak, just watches. Garrett's pulse hammers. Who's there? No answer. He takes a step forward, the flashlight beam trained on the figure. I said, who's there? The figure turns, slowly, deliberately, and walks back into the trees without a sound. Gone. Garrett stands on the porch for a full minute, listening, flashlight sweeping the tree line. Nothing. Just wind through the pines and the distant hoot of an owl. Maverick is beside him now, body tense, every muscle coiled and ready. Garrett whistles low, 2 sharp notes. Inside, now. They retreat into the cabin. Garrett locks the door, bolts it, wedges a chair under the handle the way he learned in a combat zone, where a locked door means nothing if someone really wants in. He pulls out his phone. No signal. Not up here. The mountains block everything. He sits at the table, the tin box open in front of him. The checks spread out like cards in a losing hand. Dorothy's photograph staring up at him. Her letter folded beside it. His phone buzzes. Impossible. There's no signal, but it buzzes again. He picks it up. One bar, flickering, a text message coming through in pieces. From an unknown number, he opens it. A photo loads slowly line by line. It shows Garrett. At the scrapyard, yesterday. Welding. The same photo Kane left on the porch. Beneath the photo, a message in all capitals, "You have 24 hours. Leave the cabin, or we come in." Garrett sets the phone down. His jaw clenches. He looks at Maverick. They think they can scare us off. The dog's eyes don't leave his. Garrett picks up the phone again, opens the camera, starts recording. He films the checks. One by one, all 47. Theodore Kane's signature on every one clear and damning. He films Dorothy's photograph, her bruised face, her fierce eyes. He films the letter, every word, every line. Then he opens his laptop, an old Dell that takes 3 minutes to boot up and connects to the satellite hotspot he keeps in his truck for emergencies. Slow, painfully slow, but it works. He uploads everything to Google Drive, makes 3 copies, sends them to 3 different email addresses he set up years ago for exactly this kind of situation. Encrypted, backed up, impossible to delete. Then he opens his contacts, finds Sheriff Lucas Brennan. Lucas was a ranger, served 2 tours in Iraq before Garrett even enlisted. They'd crossed paths in Kandahar in 2019 during a joint operation, ended up sharing a bunker for 6 hours during a mortar attack. Spent that time trading stories about home, about Montana, about what they'd do when they got out. Lucas had moved back to Montana after his discharge, became a deputy, then a sheriff, built a reputation as someone who didn't look the other way, someone who gave a damn. If anyone could help, it was him. Garrett dials, it rings 4 times. Then a voice rough with sleep and annoyance. "This better be good." "Lucas, it's Garrett Reed." A pause, the sound of sheets rustling. "Garrett, Jesus, what time is it?" "Late, I need your help." Lucas's tone sharpens immediately, the ranger coming back online. "What's wrong?" "I'm at my grandmother's cabin, Silver Peak. Someone's threatening me, they want me gone." "Who Ash?" "Victor Kane, you ever heard of him?" Another pause, longer this time. When Lucas speaks again, his voice is careful. "Yeah, I've heard of him, Kane and Associates. Big money, big connections, Washington lobbyist. What the hell did you do to piss him off?" "I found evidence his father embezzled $47 million in 1968 from Korean War veteran relief funds." Lucas swears under his breath, a long creative string that would make a drill sergeant proud. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. I've got checks, recordings, witness testimony. All of it." "Garrett, listen to me. If you're going up against Kane, you need lawyers, federal prosecutors, maybe the FBI, not a small-town sheriff who barely has the budget for new tires." "I know, but I need you to know what I've got in case something happens to me." "Nothing's going to happen to you." "Lucas," the line goes quiet. "All right," Lucas says finally. "I'm listening." Garrett tells him everything. The journal, the cassette tape, Walt Pruitt's testimony, the checks hidden in the chimney, the photograph of Dorothy's bruised face, the letter written 2 days before she died. When he's done, Lucas exhales slowly, a sound like air leaving a punctured tire. "Jesus, Garrett, this is bigger than both of us. This is federal. This is the kind of thing that brings down senators." "I know." "Where are the originals?" "Here with me." "Don't move them. Don't touch them. I'm coming up there. I'll be there by 8 in the morning. We'll figure this out together. We'll do it right." "Thanks, Lucas." "Don't thank me yet. Just stay alive until I get there." "You armed?" "Glock, 15 rounds." "Keep it close." And Garrett, "Yeah. Don't do anything stupid." The line goes dead. Garrett sets the phone down. He looks at the clock on the wall, an old Timex that ticks loud enough to hear across the room. 3:47 in the morning. 4 hours until Lucas arrives. He can make it 4 hours. He brews a pot of coffee on the old propane stove, the kind with 2 burners and a pilot light that takes 3 tries to catch. Pours himself a cup in a chipped mug that says "World's Best Grandma." Sits at the table with the journal open in front of him. Maverick lies at his feet, eyes half closed but alert the way he sleeps in hostile territory. Garrett reads through Dorothy's entries again, slower this time. looking for details he missed. Patterns, names that repeat. One entry catches his eye, dated March 15th, 1969. They came to the house today. Two men in suits said they were from the Justice Department, but I know who sent them. Kane, Bernard. They searched everything, tore apart my filing cabinets, took my typewriter, my address book, my personal correspondence, said they were investigating embezzlement, investigating me, but they didn't find what they were looking for because I'd already moved it, hidden it where they'd never think to look. If they come back, I'll have to disappear. I've made arrangements, a cabin in the mountains, paid for in cash, no paper trail. No one will find me there. No one even knows it exists. I'm sorry, Garrett. Sorry I won't be there to watch you grow up. Sorry I won't see you graduate, get married, have children of your own. But this is the only way to keep you safe. If they know about you, if they know we're connected, they'll use you to get to me. They'll threaten you. Hurt you? I can't let that happen. So I'm disappearing, and I'm taking the truth with me. And someday when it's safe, when you're old enough and strong enough, you'll find it. And you'll finish what I started. I believe in you. D. Garrett closes the journal. His throat is tight. His chest aches. She'd planned it all. Decades in advance, every step, every contingency. She'd given up her life to protect him. And now he was going to finish what she started. The sky outside starts to lighten. Gray dawn creeping over the ridge, turning the world from black to charcoal to slate. Garrett stands, stretches. His back aches from sitting too long in a chair built for someone smaller. He walks to the window. The clearing is empty. No sign of the figure from last night. No fresh tire tracks. Just morning mist rising from the wet ground like ghosts. But he knows they're still out there, watching, waiting. At 7:30, he hears an engine. Maverick's ears prick up. He moves to the door, not growling this time. He recognizes the sound. Garrett grabs the Glock from his duffel bag anyway, checks the magazine. 15 rounds, racks the slide. A round in the chamber, safety on. He peers through the window. A sheriff's cruiser rolls into the clearing. Cedar Ridge County Sheriff painted on the side in gold letters. Light bar on top, currently dark. Lucas. Garrett holsters the Glock in his waistband and opens the door. Lucas steps out. 58 years old, but looks younger. Tall, lean, gray hair buzz short and a high and tight that never goes out of style. He's wearing his uniform tan shirt, dark green pants, gun belt with a Glock 22 on his right hip, badge over his heart. He looks at Garrett and shakes his head. You look like hell. Didn't sleep. I can see that. Lucas walks up the steps. Maverick sniffs his hand, recognizes his scent from Kandahar, backs off and sits. Good to see you two, Mav, Lucas says, scratching behind the dog's ears. They go inside. Lucas looks around, takes in the stacks of papers on the table, the tin box, the cassette player, the journal open to Dorothy's last entry. Show me what you've got. Garrett shows him everything. The checks, the journal, the photograph of Dorothy's bruised face, the letter she wrote 2 days before she died, the recording of Kane hitting her. Lucas listens to the tape twice, his expression hardening with each word, each sound of violence. When it's done, he sits back in his chair and runs a hand over his face. This is enough, he says quietly. More than enough. We can take this to the FBI, federal prosecutors, U.S. Attorney's Office. They'll open an investigation. Grand jury, the works. And how long will that take? Garrett asks. Months, years. Kane's got money, lawyers that cost more than my truck. He'll bury this in red tape and motions and appeals. Lucas rubs his face. So what do you want to do? I want to make it public, right now. Upload it to every news outlet I can find. Post it on social media. Let the world see it before Kane can spin it or bury it. Lucas shakes his head slowly. That's risky. If you go public before law enforcement gets involved, Kane's lawyers will claim you fabricated it. They'll tear you apart, question your mental health, your service record. They'll dig up every mistake you ever made and use it to discredit you. Let them try. Lucas studies him for a long moment, the way a commanding officer studies a Marine who's about to do something brave and stupid. You're really going to do this? I am. Lucas nods slowly. All right, then we do it smart. We upload the documents, but we also contact the FBI, the Montana Attorney General, the press, all at the same time. Flood the zone, make it impossible to ignore. Make it so big they can't sweep it under the rug. Garrett's mouth quirks into a faint smile. You've done this before? Something like it. Back in '09, county commissioner was taking kickbacks from a mining company. We had to go public before he could destroy the evidence. Worked then, should work now. They spend the next hour scanning documents on Lucas's portable scanner, the kind detectives use at crime scenes, uploading files to secure servers. Lucas makes calls, leaves voicemails, sends emails to reporters. He knows federal agents he trusts. By 10 in the morning, the story is out. Billings Gazette picks it up first, then Montana Standard, then USSA Today, then Associated Press. The headline reads, "Grandson of accused thief claims she was framed by decorated general." Within an hour, it's trending on Twitter, or X, whatever they're calling it now. Within 2 hours, it's on cable news, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. All of them running the same story, same headlines, different spin. By noon, it's everywhere. Lucas's phone starts ringing. Reporters, producers, federal investigators. He steps outside to take the calls, pacing the porch while he talks. Garrett sits at the table staring at his phone. The comments section on the news articles is a battlefield. Half the people call him a hero. The other half call him a liar, a conspiracy theorist, an attention seeker, someone with PTSD who can't tell reality from fantasy. But the evidence is out there now. Public, undeniable, permanent. Maverick rests his head on Garrett's knee the way he does when he senses anxiety building. Garrett scratches behind the dog's ears. "We did it, Mav. We got the truth out." The dog's eyes close, content. For now. For the first time in days, Garrett allows himself to breathe. But the peace doesn't last long. At 2 in the afternoon, his phone buzzes. A text. From an unknown number. He opens it. A video, 30 seconds long. He presses play. The video shows the interior of a warehouse. Dark, empty, concrete floors, corrugated metal walls, and in the center, tied to a chair with duct tape and zip ties, is a man. Old, white hair, trembling hands even in stillness. Walter Pruitt, a voice off camera, speaks. Distorted, run through a voice changer, mechanical, inhuman. "You have 2 hours, Mr. Reed. Where shall I be? Bring the original evidence to the old Route 7 warehouse on the east side of Cedar Ridge. Come alone. If you contact the police, he dies. If you bring anyone with you, he dies. If you're late, he dies. 2 hours." The video ends. Garrett's blood turns to ice. Lucas steps back inside, sees Garrett's face, the color draining from it. What happened? Garrett shows him the video. Lucas swears long and creative. That's kidnapping, federal crime, crossing state lines probably. "We call the FBI right now." They said no police. They're bluffing. Are they? Lucas doesn't answer, because they both know the answer. Men like Kane don't bluff. Garrett stands. "I'm going." Garrett, no, that's exactly what they want. They'll kill you both. This is a trap. I know it's a trap, but I'm not leaving Walt to die because of me. Lucas grabs his arm. "Then I'm coming with you." They said alone. I don't care what they said. You're not walking into that warehouse by yourself. Garrett looks at him, really looks at him, sees the determination in his eyes, the ranger who never left a man behind. He nods. "All right, but we do it smart. You stay back. Out of sight. If things go south, you call in backup and get Walt out." Lucas nods. "Deal." They load into Lucas's cruiser. Maverick jumps in the back, settling into the space behind the cage, usually reserved for suspects. The warehouse is 20 minutes away on the edge of Cedar Ridge, where the town gives way to industrial wasteland. An old grain storage facility, been abandoned for decades since the mill closed in the 80s. They park half a mile out. Approach on foot, moving through scrub brush and rusted equipment. The warehouse looms ahead, a massive structure maybe 200 feet long, 50 wide. Rusted metal walls, broken windows like missing teeth. The door hangs crooked on its hinges, held in place by one bolt that's rusted but hasn't quite failed. Lucas hands Garrett a radio. "Channel 3, I'll be watching from the north side. Anything goes wrong, you call me. Don't try to be a hero." Garrett takes the radio, clips it to his belt. He checks his Glock. 15 rounds in the mag, 1 in the chamber. He holsters it at the small of his back where it's hidden but accessible, and walks toward the warehouse. Maverick stays at his side, silent, alert, the way he walked point in Kandahar. The door is open. Garrett steps inside. The warehouse swallows him whole. The air inside is thick with dust that hangs in shafts of weak afternoon light, cutting through holes in the corrugated roof. Garrett's boots echo on the concrete floor, each step a sharp report that bounces off the walls and comes back at him from a dozen directions. The space is vast, empty, stripped of everything that once made it useful. Catwalks overhead, rusted and sagging. Stacks of old pallets rotting in the corners, home to rats and spiders. The smell of rust and decay, and something else. Fear, maybe. Or death waiting to happen. Maverick moves ahead, nose working the ground, processing 1,000 scents that tell him a story Garrett can't read. The dog's body is tense, every muscle coiled, ready to explode into action. Garrett scans the room with the methodical precision the Marines taught him. Corners, exits, high ground, threat assessment. His hand hovers near the Glock, not touching it yet but ready. And in the center of the room, exactly as the video showed, a man tied to a metal chair. Walter Pruitt, his head hangs forward, chin touching his chest. Blood is dried in a dark line from a cut above his eye running down his temple to his jaw. His hands are bound behind his back with zip ties that have bitten into the skin, leaving red welts. His feet are duct taped to the chair legs. But he's breathing. Garrett can see his chest rise and fall. Alive. For now. Garrett takes a step forward, boots crunching on broken glass scattered across the floor. "That's far enough, Mr. Reed." The voice comes from above. Garrett's eyes snap up. Victor Kane stands on the catwalk 20 feet overhead, hands resting on the railing like a king surveying his domain. He's not wearing a suit today. Dark jeans, black field jacket, and in his right hand a Beretta 92, the kind the Army issues to officers. Pointed at Walt's head. "I'm here," Garrett says. His voice is steady, calm, the voice of a man who's had guns pointed at him before and lived. "Let him go." Kane smiles. It's the same smile from the porch cold and practiced a tool he uses like the gun. "I will, as soon as you give me what's mine. The evidence isn't yours. It belongs to the families your father stole from." "My father built this state." Kane's voice rises slightly, the first crack in his composure. "He built half of Montana. That money funded schools, roads, jobs. It didn't sit in some government bank account collecting dust while bureaucrats decided how to spend it. It was meant for veterans, men who fought for this country, men who came home with nothing." Kane's smile fades completely. "You don't understand power, Mr. Reed. You never have. You're a soldier. You follow orders. You do what you're told. You're a tool. A weapon someone else points and fires, but men like me, we make the orders. We decide who wins and who loses." Two figures emerge from the shadows behind him. The same men from the cabin, both wearing tactical vests, both armed with handguns, Glocks from the shape. Garrett doesn't move. His hand still hovers near his waistband, near the Glock hidden beneath his jacket. But he doesn't draw. Not yet. "You made a mistake," Kane continues, his voice dropping back to that smooth, controlled tone. "Uploading those files, going to the press. You think that changes anything? I have lawyers, politicians, judges, people who owe me favors going back decades. By the end of the week, every one of those documents will be discredited. Experts will testify they're forgeries. Witnesses will recant. You'll be the conspiracy theorist who fabricated evidence to slander a war hero. 3,000 people have already seen it." Kane laughs. It's a genuine sound full of real amusement. 3,000, try 30 million. It's all over the news. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. My phone has been ringing nonstop. Reporters, federal agents, even the Attorney General called. Very concerned, very serious, very ineffective. He leans over the railing, his eyes cold and hard as river stones. "You've made my life very difficult, Mr. Reed. Very expensive. I'll have to spend a lot of money to make this go away. Money I'd rather spend on other things." "Good." Kane's expression hardens. "Last chance, delete the files. Issue a public retraction. Say you were mistaken, confused, grieving. Say your PTSD made you see things that weren't there. I have doctors who will back that up. Veterans Affairs records showing your diagnosis. It's a believable story." "No. Then you're a fool." Kane raises the pistol, and for a moment Garrett thinks he's going to shoot Walt right there, execute him on camera. Or off, it doesn't matter. But Garrett does something he hasn't done since Kandahar. He pulls out his phone, holds it up so Kane can see the screen. The screen glows. A red dot pulses in the corner. Facebook Live. "Say that again," Garrett says quietly. "For the record." Kane's face goes pale. Actually pale. The blood drains from his cheeks. "What? I'm streaming this. Right now. 4,891 people are watching. See?" He turns the phone so Kane can see the screen. The viewer count climbs. 5,000, 6,000. The comments scroll so fast they're a blur of outrage and support and confusion. "Call the police. Someone get the FBI. This is insane. He's a hero. This is fake. Call 911 now. Kane's hand shakes. The gun wavers. You're bluffing. Am I? Garrett's voice is quiet, dangerous. The voice of a man who has nothing left to lose. Pull that trigger and 6,000 people will watch you commit murder. Your face, your voice, your confession, all recorded, all public, and all permanent. Even your lawyers can't make that disappear. Kane's grip tightens on the pistol. His eyes flick between Garrett and the phone, and the viewer count that's still climbing. 7,000, 8,000. Then he makes a choice. He swings the gun toward Garrett. Maverick moves. The dog is a blur of muscle and fur, and violence held in check for 7 years and finally unleashed. 80 pounds of Shepherd Malinois mix launched across the room in less than 2 seconds, covering the distance before Kane can adjust his aim. The shot goes off. The bullet punches through the corrugated wall with a metallic shriek, a hole the size of a quarter appearing 20 feet to Garrett's left. Maverick hits Kane's arm just as he fires. The dog's jaws clamp around his wrist with 600 pounds of pressure per square inch, the kind of bite that breaks bones and severs tendons. Not shaking, not thrashing, just holding, immobilizing. The way he was trained in Kandahar when they taught him to take down suicide bombers without killing them, because sometimes you need prisoners who can talk. Kane screams, a high, thin sound of pure pain. The pistol clatters to the concrete floor below, bouncing twice before sliding into shadow. The two men on the catwalk raise their weapons, Glocks coming up fast. Garrett draws his own Glock in one smooth motion. Muscle memory, years of training taking over. His hands don't shake. His breathing doesn't change. But he doesn't aim at them. He aims at the ground in front of them. Fires once. The concrete explodes. Chips of stone spray into the air, peppering their legs, their faces. The sound is deafening in the enclosed space, a crack that makes ears ring and hearts skip. The men freeze. Drop them, Garrett says. His voice is calm, steady. Now. They do. The weapons clatter to the floor. Garrett kicks them away, sends them skittering across the concrete into the darkness. On the catwalk, Kane is on his knees, clutching his bleeding wrist with his other hand. Blood runs between his fingers, drips through the gaps in the catwalk to the floor below. Maverick stands over him, teeth still bared, a sound like rolling thunder coming from his chest. The dog's eyes are locked on Kane, waiting for the command to release or the movement that will trigger another bite. Garrett moves to Walt. He pulls the pocket knife from his belt and cuts the zip ties with quick, practiced motions. The old man slumps forward. Garrett catches him before he can fall. You're okay. Garrett says, his voice gentle now, the way you talk to wounded men. You're okay, Walt. Walt's eyes flutter open. He looks up at Garrett, and despite everything, the blood, the pain, the fear, he manages a weak smile. You came. Of course I did. Sirens wail in the distance, getting louder, multiple vehicles from the sound of it. Garrett looks at his phone. The viewer count has hit 12,000. The comments are a flood. The police are coming. Justice for Dorothy. Hero dog. This is real. Arrest him. Lock him up. Sheriff Lucas Brennan bursts through the door, weapon drawn, moving with the economy of motion that comes from years of training. Two deputies behind him, both with their sidearms out, both scanning for threats. Lucas takes in the scene with one sweep. Kane on the catwalk, clutching his wrist. Maverick standing over him, teeth bared. The two men with their hands up. Garrett holding Walt. He lowers his weapon. Garrett, you good? Yeah, we're good. Lucas looks at Kane, then at the phone in Garrett's hand, the red light still blinking. He shakes his head, and despite everything, he's smiling. You crazy son of a bitch. Garrett manages a faint smile back. Learn from the best. One of the deputies climbs the catwalk and cuffs Kane's hands behind his back, being careful of the injured wrist, but not too careful. Another calls for an ambulance on his radio. Lucas walks over to Garrett. Looks at Walt, who's conscious now, blinking in the dim light. Ambulance is 2 minutes out. He's going to be fine. Walt reaches up and grabs Garrett's jacket with a hand that's still shaking. His voice is hoarse, barely a whisper. You did it. You got him. We got him, Garrett says, glancing at Maverick, at Lucas at the phone still recording. All of us. Lucas turns to Kane, still on the catwalk, blood dripping from his wrist onto the floor below. Victor Kane, you're under arrest. Kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder. He pauses, in their satisfaction in his voice. An obstruction of justice. Probably a few other charges once the FBI gets here. Kane glares at him. His voice is a rasp, broken by pain. This isn't over. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Lucas steps closer and his voice drops to a whisper that carries anyway. Yeah, he says quietly. It is. The paramedics arrive. Load Walt onto a stretcher. He's conscious, stable, talking, telling them he's fine, he's been through worse, but they ignore him the way paramedics always do and start an IV anyway. Garrett stands in the warehouse, phone still in his hand. The live stream has ended, but the video has been automatically saved, backed up, downloaded, and re-uploaded by thousands of people in the last 15 minutes. It's out there now. Permanent, unerasable. Victor Kane being arrested, confessing on camera. Threatening murder, all witnessed by 15,000 people. Maverick trots over, tail wagging for the first time in days, the adrenaline bleeding off now that the threat is neutralized. The dog sits beside Garrett, leaning against his leg the way he does. Garrett kneels and wraps his arms around him, buries his face in the thick fur. Good boy, Mav. Good boy. You saved us. Again. The dog licks his face once, a rare gesture of affection. Lucas walks over, carrying 2 bottles of water from the ambulance. Hands one to Garrett. FBI's on the way. They want to interview you. Get your statement. This is going to turn into a media circus. Garrett nods. I know. Lucas sits down on an overturned pallet, suddenly looking tired, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving exhaustion in its wake. You know this is going to get messy, right? Lawyers, depositions, trials. Could take years. I know. Lucas studies him for a moment. You did good, Garrett. Real good. Better than good. You brought down one of the most powerful men in Montana. You exposed a 58-year-old cover-up. You got justice for your grandmother, for thousands of veterans who got screwed. Couldn't have done it without you. Yeah, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to. They sit in silence for a while. The warehouse is full of people now. Deputies, paramedics, crime scene techs taking photos and measurements. A news van pulls up outside satellite dish, already extending. But all Garrett can think about is Dorothy. She'd lived 30 years in hiding. 30 years carrying this secret, waiting for someone to finish what she started. And now it was done. 2 months passed like a dream. Garrett stands in the lobby of the federal courthouse in Billings, the biggest city in Montana, though that's not saying much. The marble floors gleam under fluorescent lights. People in expensive suits hurry past, briefcases and hand phones pressed to their ears, talking in the language of law. That sounds like English, but isn't. He's wearing the only suit he owns, bought it at Goodwill 3 days ago for $40. Navy blue. Doesn't fit quite right. The shoulders are too tight, the sleeves a half-inch too long. But it's respectable, professional. The kind of thing you wear when you're testifying at a federal trial. Maverick sits beside him wearing his service dog vest, the official one with patches and everything. The dog's eyes track every movement in the crowded space, cataloging threats that probably don't exist but might. Sheriff Lucas walks over carrying 2 cups of coffee from the courthouse cafeteria. He hands one to Garrett. Verdict should be in any minute. Garrett takes a sip. It's terrible. Burnt and bitter, and probably been sitting on the burner for 3 hours. But it's something to do with his hands while he waits. The trial lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of testimony and evidence, and expert witnesses arguing about handwriting analysis and audio forensics, and whether a recording from 1968 could be authenticated after all this time. Victor Kane faced 18 federal charges: kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to defraud the United States, making false statements to federal agents, witness tampering. The list went on. The evidence was overwhelming. The live stream video watched by millions. The checks signed by Theodore Kane. Dorothy's journal with her meticulous records. Walt Pruitt's testimony delivered from a wheelchair but clear and damning. The cassette tape with Dorothy's voice and Kane's threat. Kane's lawyers argued entrapment, fabrication, mental instability on Garrett's part. They brought in experts who testified about PTSD and how it can cause false memories, confabulation, and inability to distinguish reality from fantasy. But the jury didn't buy it. A bailiff steps out of the courtroom. Older man, gray hair, wearing a uniform that's seen better days. Verdict's in. Garrett and Lucas follow him inside. The courtroom is packed, reporters filling every available seat, spectators standing along the walls, veterans in their dress uniforms, some in wheelchairs, some missing limbs, all wearing their service with quiet pride. Walt Pruitt sits in the front row, looking healthier than he did 2 months ago. Someone, probably his kids, bought him a new suit. He nods at Garrett. Garrett nods back. The judge enters. Everyone rises. Please be seated. They sit. The judge is a woman in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. Judge Patricia Morrison. Appointed by Obama. Reputation for being fair but tough. Has the jury reached a verdict? She asks us. The jury foreman stands. A woman in her 50s, gray hair, stern expression, wearing a cardigan that looks hand-knitted. We have your honor. How do you find the defendant on the charge of kidnapping? Guilty. The word hangs in the air like a bell that's been rung. On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon? Guilty. On the charge of attempted murder? Guilty. The list continues. 18 charges. 18 times the foreman says the same word with the same firm conviction. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Victor Kane sits motionless at the defense table, flanked by his lawyers who probably cost $5,000 an hour. His face is pale, his hands folded in front of him. The wrist maverick bit is still bandaged. The judge addresses him directly, her voice carrying the weight of the law. Mr. Kane, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will take place in 30 days. Until then, you will remain in federal custody without bail. Marshals, please take him into custody. The U.S. Marshals step forward, cuff his hands behind his back, lead him out through a side door. He doesn't look at Garrett as he passes. The courtroom erupts. Reporters surge toward the doors, running for their cameras and microphones. Spectators cheer. Veterans shake hands, embrace some of them crying. Garrett sits still, staring at the empty defense table. It's over. Really over. Lucas leans over, his voice quiet. You okay? Yeah. Garrett's voice is quiet too, almost lost in the noise. Yeah, I'm okay. Outside the courthouse, it's chaos. Reporters swarm like bees, microphones thrust toward Garrett's face. Cameras with blinding lights, questions shouted over one another in a cacophony that makes his head hurt. Mr. Reed, how do you feel about the verdict? What do you want people to know about your grandmother? Are you satisfied with the outcome? What message does this send? Lucas steps between Garrett and the cameras, holding up his hands. No questions. Mr. Reed will issue a statement later. Please respect his privacy. They push through the crowd, reach Lucas's cruiser, drive away. Garrett watches the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror, watches the reporters still clustered on the steps, still talking to their cameras. You don't have to make a statement, Lucas says after a while. You don't owe them anything. I know, but I want to. Lucas nods. All right, we'll set something up. Controlled environment. Press conference at the sheriff's office. You say what you want to say, then we're done. Thanks. They drive in silence for a while, leaving Billings behind, heading back towards Cedar Ridge and the mountains beyond. Then Lucas speaks again, his voice careful. FBI finished their investigation into Theodore Kane's estate. Found 11 more checks hidden in a safety deposit box in Helena. $11 million. Never cashed. Plus, they traced another $20 million through shell companies he set up in the Cayman Islands. Garrett's hands tighten on his knees. What happens to the money? Goes back to the Veterans Relief Fund. They're setting up a special account specifically for Korean War veterans and their families. Housing assistance, medical care, education for their kids and grandkids. Good. There's something else. Lucas glances at him, then back at the road. Federal Whistleblower Protection Act. You exposed government fraud, major fraud, the kind that makes headlines. They're awarding you $500,000. Garrett blinks, stares at him. What? $500,000 for coming forward, for making this public, for doing what Dorothy couldn't do. Garrett stares out the window at the mountains rising in the distance, at the valley rolling past beneath a sky that's finally clear. $500,000, more money than his mother made in her entire life, more money than he's ever imagined having. I'm putting it into Thornhaven, he says quietly, the idea forming as he speaks. Lucas frowns. What's Thornhaven? Dorothy's cabin. I'm turning it into a retreat. For veterans, guys dealing with PTSD, traumatic brain injury, the ones who can't handle the VA system, can't handle the crowds and the paperwork and the bureaucracy, a place where they can just be. No questions, no expectations, just quiet and space to heal. Lucas is silent for a long moment. Then he smiles, and it's genuine, reaching his eyes. Dorothy would be proud of that. I hope so. 3 weeks later, the first veteran arrives at what will become Thornhaven. His name is Marcus Webb, 27 years old. Army infantry, 2 tours in Afghanistan, discharged 6 months ago, with a diagnosis of severe PTSD, traumatic brain injury from an IED blast, and survivor's guilt after watching 3 men in his unit die in an ambush outside Kandahar. He stands in front of the cabin duffel bag over his shoulder, looking lost in a way that has nothing to do with geography. Garrett walks down the porch steps, extends his hand. Welcome to Thorn Haven. Marcus shakes his hand. His grip is weak. His eyes are hollow, the thousand-yard stare that veterans know on sight. Is it always this quiet? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Garrett smiles. It is now. Maverick trots over, moving slower than he used to, 9 years old now, and feeling it. The dog sits beside Marcus and leans against his leg, offering his weight, his warmth, his presence. Marcus's hand drops to Maverick's head. He scratches behind the dog's ears, and something in his expression softens. For the first time in months, he smiles. It's a small smile. Fragile, but it's real. Over the next few months, more veterans arrive. 7 more men, 3 women, all carrying wounds that don't show up on X-rays or CT scans, all looking for a place where they don't have to explain themselves. Garrett hires Dr. Sarah Chen, a 50-year-old former Army psychologist who understands what these men and women are going through because she went through it herself. 2 tours in Iraq as a combat stress counselor, came home with her own PTSD, and spent 5 years figuring out how to live with it. He builds 4 more cabins on the property using the money from the whistleblower reward. Small, simple. Each one with a wood stove and a view of the mountains and a porch where you can sit and watch the sunrise without anyone asking you questions. He sets up a workshop with tools and workbenches, a place where they can build things, fix things, keep their hands busy while their minds process what they've been through. And he brings in more dogs, retired military working dogs, K9s who served their time and need a place to rest, to recover, to remember what it's like to just be a dog instead of a weapon. By spring, Thorn Haven is home to 8 veterans and 5 dogs. The cabin has been expanded. New bunks built in what used to be the storage room, a common room with a fireplace where they gather in the evenings, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. A kitchen where they cook meals together because cooking for others is a kind of therapy too. It's not a hospital, not a treatment facility, just a place where no one asks you to be okay, where you can heal at your own pace, where silence is respected and nightmares are understood. One morning in April, Garrett stands on the porch watching the sun rise over Silver Peak. The sky is clear, the air is cold and clean, tasting of pine and snow melt. Sheriff Lucas pulls up in his cruiser, steps out carrying a newspaper folded under his arm. Thought you'd want to see this, he says. Garrett takes it. The headline reads, Victor Kane sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Beneath it, a smaller headline, $47 million returned to Veterans Relief Fund after 58-year cover-up. And at the bottom of the page, another headline, grandson of accused thief receives $500,000, whistleblower reward opens veteran retreat. There's a photo. Garrett standing in front of the Thorn Haven sign, Maverick at his side, mountains rising behind them. Garrett folds the paper and sets it aside. Lucas grins. Dorothy's looking down on you right now, and she's damn proud. Garrett's voice is thick. I hope so. Lucas claps him on the shoulder. I know so. What you're doing here, it matters. You're changing lives. Saving lives, probably. That's what she would have wanted. It's what she deserved. They stand in silence, watching the valley wake up, watching the first light touch the trees. After a while, Lucas speaks again. You know what you did, right? You stood up to one of the most powerful men in Montana. You exposed a cover-up that went all the way to Washington. You fought for the truth when everyone told you to shut up and go away. That takes guts. Real guts. Garrett shakes his head. I didn't do anything special. I just finished what Dorothy started. That's what makes it special. You didn't have to. You could have sold the cabin, taken Kane's money, walked away. No one would have blamed you, but you didn't. You chose the hard road, the right road. Garrett looks out at the mountains, at the cabins nestled among the trees, at the smoke rising from the chimneys, where veterans are waking up to another day of healing. She spent 30 years in hiding, 30 years carrying this secret, waiting for someone to be brave enough to speak. I couldn't let that be for nothing. Lucas nods. And now it's not. That evening, Garrett walks to the edge of the property where he set up a small memorial. There's a stone marker now, simple and unadorned, placed where Dorothy asked to have her ashes scattered. It reads, Dorothy Thorn, 1927 to 1999. She chose truth over silence. Garrett kneels and sets a bouquet of wildflowers on the marker. Purple lupines, the kind that grow wild on the mountain in spring, the kind Dorothy used to pick and put in jars on the kitchen table. We made it right, Grandma, just like you asked. The wind stirs the pines. The last light fades from the sky, painting everything in shades of purple and gold. Maverick sits beside him, silent and watchful, the gray around his muzzle, more pronounced now, but his eyes still sharp. And somewhere Garrett knows Dorothy is watching too. He hopes she's at peace. He stands, looks out at the valley, at the home he's built from the ashes of the past, from the truth that was buried for 58 years. And he knows that some legacies are worth fighting for, some truths are worth dying for, and some loves never fade, even after 58 years, even after death, even in the silence of the mountains. They endure. 5 years pass. Thornhaven has grown beyond anything Garrett imagined that first day. 30 cabins now dot the property, built with cedar and care, each one designed to give privacy while staying connected to the community. 60 residents at any given time. A full-time staff of 12 counselors, nurses, a full-time veterinarian for the dogs, a chef who used to cook for a fancy restaurant in Seattle before his own PTSD drove him to the mountains. They've started a program specifically for canines with PTSD. Dogs who served in combat zones and came back changed, who flinch at loud noises, who can't settle, who wake up fighting invisible enemies. The program pairs them with veterans. The dogs help the humans. The humans help the dogs. It's a partnership forged in shared trauma and shared healing. Garrett is 58 years old now. His hair is completely gray, his beard too, but his eyes are clearer than they've been in decades. The nightmares are still there. They probably always will be, but they're quieter now, manageable. He's learned to live with them the way you learn to live with an old injury that aches when it rains. Maverick is 11, an old dog now by any measure. He spends most of his days sleeping in the sun on the porch of the main cabin on a dog bed someone donated that's more comfortable than any bed Garrett's ever owned. But when a new veteran arrives confused and scared and not sure they belong anywhere, the dog always gets up, always walks over with that distinctive limp, always offers his presence. It's what he was trained to do, and he'll do it until he can't anymore. One afternoon in late summer, a bus pulls up to the property, a yellow school bus that's been repurposed for field trips. A group of 30 high school students from Billings, their teacher leading them off the bus and toward the main cabin. Their teacher is a woman in her 40s, energetic and passionate, the kind who became a teacher because she actually cares. She called 2 weeks ago asking if she could bring her American history class for a visit, to learn about Dorothy Thorne, about whistleblowers, about standing up for what's right. Garrett had said yes. The students file into the common room, wide-eyed and mostly quiet, the way teenagers get when they're in a place that demands respect. They sit in a semicircle on folding chairs, notebooks out, phones put away at the teacher's insistence. Garrett stands in front of them, Maverick at his side as always, and for a moment he's not sure what to say. Then he looks at Dorothy's photograph on the wall, the one from her army days, fierce and unbroken, and the words come. "I want to tell you about my grandmother," he begins. "Her name was Dorothy Thorne, and she was the bravest person I ever knew." He tells them the story, all of it. The scandal, the $47 million, the accusation, the decades in hiding, the evidence hidden beneath the floorboards and in the chimney, the truth that waited 58 years to be told. The students listen without interruption, leaning forward in their chairs, completely absorbed. When he's done, one of them raises her hand, a girl maybe 16 wearing a Billings West High sweatshirt. "Mr. Reed, what would you say to someone who's facing something like that now? Someone who knows the truth but is scared to speak up?" Garrett is quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I'd tell them that the truth has weight. It gets heavier the longer you carry it alone. And at some point you have to set it down. You have to let other people see it, help you carry it." He pauses, looking at each student in turn. "I'd tell them that speaking the truth might cost you everything. Your reputation, your safety, your peace of mind. People will call you a liar. They'll dig up every mistake you ever made and use it against you. But keeping silent will cost you more. It'll cost you who you are. It'll cost you your soul." The girl nods, wiping her eyes. Another student raises his hand, a boy with glasses and a backpack covered in band patches. "What happened to the money, the $47 million? It went back to the Veterans Relief Fund, to the families it was stolen from. Some of them got housing, medical care, education for their kids. One family was able to buy a house for the first time in 3 generations. Another was able to afford treatment for Agent Orange exposure. It changed lives. And what happened to you?" Garrett looks around the room. At the walls covered with photographs of veterans who've come through Thornhaven, at the windows overlooking the mountains, at Maverick sleeping peacefully despite the voices. "I found my purpose," he says simply. "I built this place, And I get to help people every day. That's more than I ever thought I'd have. The students clap. It starts slow, then builds until all 30 of them are on their feet applauding. Garrett nods his thanks, suddenly uncomfortable with the attention. As they file out to tour the rest of the property, the girl who asked the first question lingers behind. Mr. Reed. Yeah, she fidgets with her notebook. My dad's a veteran. He struggles with PTSD. He won't talk about it. Won't get help. My mom doesn't know what to do. Garrett pulls a card from his pocket. He keeps a stack of them now and hands it to her. It has the Thornhaven logo, a simple outline of the mountain with a cabin at its base and a phone number. Give him this. Tell him there's a place where he doesn't have to explain, where people understand, where he can heal at his own pace. No pressure, no judgment, just support. She takes the card and clutches it tight, like it's the most valuable thing she's ever held. Thank you. You're welcome, and tell him. Tell him it gets better, it really does, but you have to do the work, and you can't do it alone. She nods and hurries after her classmates. That night, Garrett sits on the porch with Lucas. They're both older now, grayer, slower, but still friends, still brothers in the way that matters. Lucas takes a sip of beer. You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't gone up to that cabin? Garrett shrugs. All the time. Kane would have gotten away with it. Dorothy would have died a fugitive. The money would have stayed hidden. Those families would never have gotten justice. Maybe. No, maybe about it. You changed history, Garrett. You exposed corruption that went back 6 decades. You brought down one of the most powerful families in Montana. You gave voice to someone who couldn't speak for herself. Garrett shakes his head. I didn't change anything. I just told the truth. Dorothy did the hard part. She kept the evidence safe for 58 years. She sacrificed everything, her career, her reputation, her family, her life. All I did was finish what she started. Lucas is quiet for a moment, then raises his beer. To Dorothy. Garrett clinks his bottle against Lucas's. To Dorothy. They sit in silence, watching the stars come out one by one, watching the bats emerge from the eaves to hunt insects in the twilight. Maverick lies between them, breathing slow and steady content. And somewhere in the darkness, an owl calls its hunting cry. The mountain's answer was silence. And Garrett Reed, veteran grandson, guardian of truth, builder of sanctuaries, closes his eyes and allows himself to rest. Because the fight is over, the truth has been told, justice has been served, and Dorothy Thorne can finally sleep. Dub. 10 years later, a young woman stands in front of the stone marker at the edge of Thornhaven. She's 23 years old, wearing a University of Montana sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her hands hold a bouquet of purple lupines, the same flowers that grow wild on the mountain every spring. She kneels and places the bouquet on the marker with gentle hands. Dorothy Thorne, 1927 to 1999. She chose truth over silence. The woman's name is Emily Reed. Garrett's niece, his brother's daughter. She never met Dorothy, her great-grandmother, but she grew up hearing the stories. About the accountant who stood up to a general. About the woman who gave up everything to protect the truth. About the grandmother who changed history by refusing to stay silent. Emily is studying journalism at the University of Montana, investigative journalism specifically. She wants to tell stories that matter, stories that expose corruption, stories that give voice to the voiceless. She learned that from her Uncle Garrett, and from the great-grandmother she never knew. As she stands brushing dirt from her knees, she sees an old man walking toward her, tall despite his age, gray beard, leaning on a cane carved from pine, a gift from one of the veterans. Garrett. He's 68 years old now, retired from running Thornhaven, though he still lives on the property in a small cabin he built himself. He still helps out when he can, still talks to new arrivals, still tells Dorothy's story to anyone who'll listen. Hey, Uncle Garrett. Hey, kiddo. Paying your respects. Yeah, I wanted to visit before I head back to school. Got a big story I'm working on. They stand together looking at the marker at the mountains beyond. What's the story about? Emily grins. Corporate fraud, defense contractor overcharging the military by $60 million over 5 years. I've got documents. Whistleblower testimony, the works. Garrett looks at her with pride so fierce it makes his chest ache. She'd be proud of you, following in her footsteps. Emily's smile softens. I hope so. I know so. They walk back toward the main cabin together, Emily matching her pace to his slower one. Thornhaven has grown even more in the last decade. 50 cabins now, 100 residents, a staff of 30, a waiting list 6 months long. It's become a model for other states. Colorado is building one. Arizona, North Carolina, Places where veterans can heal without bureaucracy, without judgment, without the weight of expectations. As they reach the porch, an old dog limps out to meet them. Maverick, 14 years old now, almost completely gray-white around the muzzle and eyes. Nearly blind in one eye, deaf in one ear. Arthritis in his hips and that old leg injury from Kandahar making every step painful, but still here. Still watching over the place he helped build. Garrett kneels slowly, his joints protesting, and wraps his arms around the dog. "Hey, Mav. Good boy. Always such a good boy." Maverick's tail wags slow and deliberate, conserving energy but communicating love. Emily watches them, then pulls out her phone. Takes a picture. The old man and the old dog. Still together after all these years. Still fighting, still standing. She posted to Instagram with a caption, "My uncle and his partner. They changed the world. One truth at a time." Hashtag Thorn Haven, hashtag Justice for Dorothy. Within an hour, it has 10,000 likes. Within a day, 100,000. The story spreads. Again, like it does every few years when someone new discovers it. The documentary that came out in 28, the book that won the Pulitzer in 30, the HBO series currently in production. Dorothy Thorn's name, once synonymous with scandal and theft, is now taught in schools. In ethics classes. In courses on whistleblowing and institutional courage. Her story endures. And somewhere in the quiet of the Montana mountains, Garrett hopes she knows. Hopes she's at peace. Hopes she understands that her sacrifice wasn't for nothing. That evening, Garrett sits in his cabin, the small one he built, just him and Maverick, simple, imperfect, and opens a letter that arrived that morning. It's from the Department of Veterans Affairs. He reads it twice, then a third time. "Dear Mr. Read, on behalf of the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, I am writing to inform you that Dorothy Thorn has been posthumously cleared of all charges related to the 1968 embezzlement case. After extensive review of the evidence you provided, including financial records, audio recordings, and witness testimony, we have determined that Ms. Thorn was wrongfully accused. Furthermore, we are awarding Mrs. Thorn the Secretary's Award for Valor, recognizing her courage in exposing fraud within the military system. This award will be presented to you as her surviving family member at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. on November 11th, Veterans Day. Ms. Thorn's service to veterans and her commitment to integrity deserve recognition and remembrance. Sincerely, Dennis McDonough, Secretary of Veterans Affairs." Garrett sets the letter down with shaking hands. He looks at Maverick, who's watching him with cloudy but attentive eyes. "She got it, Mav. She got her name back. After all these years." The dog's tail thumps twice against the floor. Garrett wipes his eyes and allows himself to smile. November comes. Garrett stands in the Veterans Affairs building in Washington, D.C., wearing his dress uniform, the one he wore to his discharge ceremony, in 2019, carefully preserved, still fitting though it's tighter around the middle now. Maverick stands beside him, also in uniform. A service dog vest with patches from every deployment, every mission, every life saved. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs presents the award to Garrett on behalf of Dorothy, a bronze medal on a ribbon, inscribed with her name and the words "for courage, integrity, and service." Garrett accepts it with both hands like something sacred. "Thank you," he says, his voice breaking. "She deserved this. She deserved so much more than this." The secretary nods. "She deserves to be remembered. And because of you, she will be." That night, Garrett returns to Montana, to Thorn Haven, to the mountains Dorothy loved. He places the medal on the stone marker next to the lupines that still grow there every spring. Dorothy Thorn, 1927 to 1999. She chose truth over silence. Secretary's Award for Valor, United States Department of Veterans Affairs. Garrett kneels in the dirt and whispers words only the wind can hear. "You were right, Grandma. The truth did find its way home. It just took a while." The wind stirs the pines, the mountains stand silent, and Garrett reads, surrounded by the veterans he's helped heal, the dogs he's helped save, and the legacy he's helped preserve, finally understands. Some stories end, but some stories never die. They live on in the people who tell them, in the mountains that remember, in the silence that speaks louder than words. Dorothy Thorn's story is one of those, and it will endure forever.